February 11th, 1943. Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire, England. The clatter of typewriters filled the wooden hut as frost patterns traced delicate designs across the windows. Joyce Harding pressed her fingers against her temples, staring at the jumbled letters spread across her desk. 5 days of intercepted German naval communications lay before her, coded messages that could mean life or death for thousands of sailors crossing the North Atlantic. She reached for another sheet, the paper crisp between her cold fingers. The heating system in Hut 8 barely functioned during the winter months, and most of the women wore their coats while working. Joyce did not mind the cold. The code consumed her attention, driving away all awareness of physical discomfort. Anything? The voice belonged to Philippa Earnshaw, who worked at the desk beside hers. Philippa's husband served on a destroyer escort somewhere in those same Atlantic waters. Joyce shook her head. The Enigma machine's settings changed daily at midnight, and the Germans had recently modified their naval procedures. What had once taken hours now stretched into days. She studied the letter frequencies again, searching for patterns that would unlock the cipher. The window darkened as evening approached. Joyce barely noticed. Her pencil moved across the paper, testing substitutions, checking bigrams, following mathematical relationships that most people could never comprehend. She had studied mathematics at Cambridge before the war, one of 3 women in her year. The work had prepared her for this, though her professors never imagined their abstract theories would be used to crack enemy codes. A pattern emerged. Joyce leaned closer, her heart rate accelerating. The letter grouping she had been tracking appeared again, in the same position relative to the message start. She grabbed another intercept, checked the position. There it was again. Philippa. Her voice remained steady despite the excitement building in her chest. Look at this. The 2 women bent over the papers together. Philippa understood codes almost as well as Joyce did, though she lacked the mathematical training. Her practical intuition often revealed connections that pure logic missed. She studied the pattern, then pulled 3 more intercepts from the stack. The weather reports. Philippa's whisper carried through the quiet room. They are still using the old format for weather reports. Joyce felt the pieces clicking into place. The Germans had changed their settings but maintained their routine reports about Atlantic conditions. Predictable text meant vulnerable encryption. She began calculating possibilities, her pencil flying across fresh paper. The mathematics flowed through her consciousness like water, each equation building upon the last. 2 hours later, they had broken the day's settings. Joyce typed the decoded messages with trembling hands, barely believing what appeared on the paper. A wolf pack of 12 U-boats was converging on convoy routes between New York and Liverpool. The submarines would reach attack position within 36 hours. Specific coordinates marked their planned interception point. Commander Travis needs to see this immediately. Philippa was already moving toward the door. Joyce gathered the decoded messages, organizing them with careful precision. The information contained in these papers would determine the fate of perhaps 50 merchant ships and their crews. She thought of the sailors sleeping in their bunks, unaware that German torpedoes were racing toward their position. Her work had just given them a chance. Commander Edward Travis read the decoded messages in silence. His face revealed nothing, though Joyce noticed his grip tighten on the papers. He was a careful man who understood the weight of the intelligence his codebreakers provided. A wrong decision could doom the convoy. A delayed decision would prove equally fatal. How confident are you in this decode? His eyes met Joyce's directly. Completely confident, sir. Joyce kept her voice level. We have verified the settings against 7 different intercepts. The mathematics is sound. Travis nodded once. He reached for the telephone on his desk, connecting to the Admiralty operations room. Joyce and Philippa waited in silence as he relayed the information. The commander's voice remained calm, but his fingers drummed against the desk with unconscious urgency. He provided coordinates, submarine positions, and estimated attack timing. Convoy SC-118 is already at sea. Travis replaced the telephone receiver. 45 merchant ships with destroyer escort. The Admiralty is redirecting them now, adding additional escorts from Iceland. Your work may have just saved 1,000 lives." Joyce felt the tension drain from her shoulders. She had done what she came to Bletchley Park to do. The mathematics had worked. The patterns had revealed themselves. The enemy's secrets had become tools for Allied victory. "There is one more thing." Travis's expression grew stern. "You understand that nothing we have discussed leaves this room. The Germans cannot know we are reading their codes. If they suspect, they will change their entire system. Every breakthrough will be lost." "Yes, sir." Joyce understood perfectly. The Official Secrets Act bound her to silence. She could never tell her family about the code-breaking work. Could never explain to friends why she spent the war in a rural estate outside London. Could never share the truth about how she had helped protect convoys or direct submarines away from Allied shipping lanes. She returned to Hut 8 as darkness settled completely over Bletchley Park. The other codebreakers worked quietly at their desks, each absorbed in their own mathematical puzzles. Most were women, recruited from universities and civil service positions. They shared an aptitude for languages and logic, an ability to see patterns where others saw only chaos. The next morning brought confirmation. The Admiralty had successfully rerouted convoy SC-118, sending it 40 miles north of the planned German ambush. Additional destroyer escorts had joined from Iceland, forming a protective screen around the merchant ships. The U-boat Wolfpack had arrived at the interception coordinates to find empty ocean. Joyce learned these details from Commander Travis in a brief meeting. He told her the German submarines had scattered, searching for their missing prey. By the time they relocated the convoy, Allied aircraft from Iceland were providing air cover. The U-boats withdrew without sinking a single vessel. 45 ships reached Liverpool safely, their cargoes intact, their crews unaware of how close they had come to disaster. "Well done, Miss Harding." Travis shook her hand formally. "The convoy commodore will never know your name, but you have earned his gratitude nonetheless." Joyce returned to her desk and picked up the next batch of intercepts. The war continued. The codes demanded breaking. Each day brought new challenges, new patterns to decode, new lives hanging in the balance. She sharpened her pencils and began the familiar process of analysis. The work consumed her days and nights. She arrived at Hut 8 before dawn, and often remained past midnight. The mathematical puzzles provided their own satisfaction, but Joyce drew deeper meaning from knowing her skills protected Allied ships. Every decoded message represented potential lives saved. Every broken code gave the Navy tactical advantage. The abstract theories she had studied at Cambridge had found concrete purpose in wartime necessity. March brought new complications. The Germans modified their Enigma procedures again, adding a fourth rotor to their naval machines. The change increased encryption complexity exponentially. What had taken hours now threatened to take weeks. Joyce and her colleagues worked frantically to adapt their methods, testing new mathematical approaches, seeking vulnerabilities in the enhanced system. Philippa received a telegram in early April. Her husband's destroyer had been sunk in Mediterranean convoy action. Joyce held her friend while she wept, unable to offer the comfort of explaining how their work had saved so many others. The secrecy demanded by Bletchley Park allowed no exceptions, not even for grief. Philippa returned to work 3 days later, her face pale but determined. She attacked the codes with renewed intensity, as though breaking each cipher provided revenge against the enemy that had taken her husband. The fourth rotor problem fell to a combined effort. Joyce developed a mathematical shortcut that reduced the possible settings by 70%. Another codebreaker created a mechanical sorting device that tested remaining possibilities automatically. Within 6 weeks, they were breaking naval Enigma again, though the process required more time and effort than before. Summer 1943 marked the turning point in the Battle of the Atlantic. Allied ships crossing the ocean faced fewer submarine attacks. Merchant losses dropped dramatically. Convoys reached port with increasing regularity. The tide of war shifted as American production overwhelmed German interdiction efforts. Joyce understood that Bletchley Park's work contributed significantly to this victory. though the public would never learn the truth. She decoded a particularly urgent message in August. A U-boat wolf pack was forming to attack convoy HX-229, a large group of merchant ships carrying ammunition and aircraft from America. The German plan showed sophisticated coordination, with submarines positioned to attack from multiple directions simultaneously. Joyce recognized the danger immediately and rushed the decode to Commander Travis. The Admiralty responded with unprecedented force. Escort carriers joined the convoy protection, providing constant air cover. Long-range aircraft from Newfoundland extended their patrols. Destroyer escorts increased from 6 to 15. The U-boats found themselves hunted rather than hunting. 3 German submarines were sunk by depth charges. The rest withdrew without launching attacks. Every ship in HX-229 reached Liverpool safely. Joyce never learned the specific details of that convoy battle. She returned to her desk, picked up the next intercept, and continued working. The discipline of routine kept her focused. The mathematics provided structure. The knowledge that her work mattered gave meaning to the long hours and constant secrecy. The war years passed in patterns of encrypted text and decoded revelations. Joyce broke hundreds of messages, perhaps thousands. She helped protect countless convoys, redirect submarines, and provide the Admiralty with intelligence that shaped naval strategy. Her mathematical genius, combined with intuition developed through constant practice, made her one of Bletchley Park's most valuable codebreakers. She received no medals, no public recognition, no acknowledgement of her contribution to Allied victory. The Official Secrets Act ensured her work remained classified. When the war ended in 1945, Joyce returned to civilian life without being able to explain where she had been or what she had accomplished. Her family assumed she had worked in some administrative capacity at a government office. Friends thought she had spent the war filing papers. The restriction frustrated her initially. She wanted to share what she had achieved, to discuss the mathematical breakthroughs with colleagues, to help the world understand how code-breaking had influenced the war's outcome. But the secrecy held firm. The British government maintained strict silence about Bletchley Park's existence and purpose. The Enigma codes remained classified. The codebreakers maintained their oath of silence. Joyce accepted a teaching position at a girls' school in Sussex. She taught mathematics to students who showed promise, encouraging them to pursue university education in technical fields. She never told them about breaking German naval codes, but she shared her love of patterns and logic. Some of her students went on to study mathematics at Oxford or Cambridge. Joyce took satisfaction in nurturing the next generation of female mathematicians. Philippa kept in touch through occasional letters. She had remarried after the war to a merchant navy officer who survived the Atlantic convoys. They lived in Portsmouth and raised 3 children. Philippa never discussed Bletchley Park in her letters, maintaining the secrecy requirements even decades later. But she sometimes mentioned teaching her children about the importance of mathematics, passing on the knowledge that had saved so many lives during wartime. The years accumulated. Joyce continued teaching, watching new generations of students discover mathematical principles. She retired in 1971, settling in a cottage near Cambridge. The university town brought back memories of her student days, when mathematics seemed purely theoretical and abstract. She had learned during the war that even the most esoteric equations could find practical application. The codes she broke had translated mathematical theory into tactical advantage. The British government began declassifying Bletchley Park documents in the mid-1970s. Joyce read newspaper articles about the code-breaking operations with mixed emotions. The work she had done in secret was finally being acknowledged publicly. The world learned how Enigma codes had been broken, how the intelligence had influenced military operations, how a group of mathematicians and linguists had contributed to Allied victory. She received an invitation to a reunion at Bletchley Park in 1976. Joyce traveled to the estate for the first time since 1945, finding the grounds much as she remembered them. The wooden huts still stood, though they had fallen into disrepair. The mansion looked weathered but maintained its dignified presence. Other veterans of the code-breaking effort gathered in small groups, sharing memories that had been locked away for 30 years. Commander Travis was there. now retired and in his 80s. He recognized Joyce immediately and greeted her warmly. They discussed the naval Enigma work, finally able to speak freely about the operations that had consumed so much of their wartime energy. Travis revealed details Joyce had never known, explaining how the intelligence she provided had influenced specific convoy routing decisions and anti-submarine operations. "That February decode," Travis said quietly, "Convoy SC-118, your breakthrough came just in time. The Admiralty calculated that without the warning, the Germans would have sunk at least 20 ships, possibly 30. You and Miss Earnshaw saved 1,000 men that night." Joyce felt the weight of those words. 1,000 men, fathers, brothers, sons, who had returned home because mathematical patterns revealed German submarine positions in time to redirect a convoy. The abstract work had yielded concrete results measured in human lives. She met other codebreakers that day, women and men who had worked in different huts on different problems. Each had their own stories of breakthroughs and frustrations, successes and failures. They shared the common bond of having contributed to victory while maintaining absolute secrecy about their role. The reunion provided closure, allowing them to finally discuss work that had defined their wartime experience. Historians began interviewing Bletchley Park veterans in the late 1970s. Joyce participated reluctantly, uncomfortable with the attention after so many years of enforced silence. But she recognized the importance of preserving the historical record. She described the mathematical methods used to break Enigma codes, explaining the logical processes and pattern recognition techniques. She emphasized the collaborative nature of the work, noting how breakthroughs often resulted from multiple codebreakers combining insights. The historians expressed amazement at the mathematical sophistication employed by Bletchley Park's codebreakers. Joyce explained that they had essentially created early computer science principles, developing mechanical sorting methods and probability calculations that prefigured modern computing. The work had required not just mathematical knowledge, but creative application of theory to practical problems under extreme time pressure. Books about Bletchley Park began appearing in bookstores. Joyce read them with interest, pleased to see the codebreakers finally receiving recognition for their contributions. Some accounts focused on famous figures like Alan Turing, whose theoretical work had enabled much of the codebreaking success. Other books highlighted the broader community of workers who had kept Bletchley Park functioning throughout the war. She was particularly gratified to see attention paid to the women codebreakers. Historians acknowledged that women had formed the majority of Bletchley Park's workforce, bringing mathematical and linguistic skills that proved essential to the codebreaking effort. Their contributions had been overlooked in early war histories, but were now being properly documented and celebrated. Joyce gave a lecture at Cambridge in 1982, speaking to mathematics students about her wartime codebreaking experience. She described the intellectual satisfaction of solving complex encryption puzzles, the pressure of working against time with lives at stake, and the frustration of maintaining decades of enforced secrecy. The students listened with rapt attention, fascinated by the intersection of pure mathematics and military application. After the lecture, several young women approached Joyce to discuss careers in mathematics and computing. They thanked her for demonstrating that women could excel in technical fields traditionally dominated by men. Joyce encouraged them to pursue their interests confidently, noting that mathematical ability transcended gender. She reflected on how much had changed since her own university days when female mathematicians faced skepticism and limited opportunities. The cottage near Cambridge became Joyce's sanctuary. She maintained a small garden and devoted hours to reading mathematical journals, staying current with developments in fields that had emerged from wartime code-breaking work. Computer science fascinated her particularly as she recognized principles she had used manually in the 1940s, now being implemented through electronic processing. The theoretical foundations she had helped establish were yielding technological advances beyond what she had imagined possible. Philippa visited occasionally, and they would spend afternoons reminiscing about Bletchley Park. The secrecy restrictions had been lifted, allowing them to finally discuss specific decodes and technical methods openly. Philippa confessed that maintaining silence had been more difficult than the actual code-breaking work. Joyce agreed. The inability to share their accomplishments had felt like a burden that grew heavier with time. The recent declassification brought relief, allowing them to claim their place in history. A documentary filmmaker interviewed Joyce in 1987. The film explored Bletchley Park's role in Allied victory, featuring veterans describing their wartime experiences. Joyce explained how breaking the naval Enigma codes had given the Admiralty tactical advantage in the Battle of the Atlantic, enabling convoy routing that avoided U-boat concentrations and directing escorts to protect vulnerable shipping. She emphasized that code-breaking alone did not win the war, but it provided intelligence that influenced operational decisions at crucial moments. The documentary premiered on British television to significant acclaim. Joyce watched it with mixed emotions, seeing her younger self represented in historical footage and hearing her own voice describing events from 4 decades past. The public response overwhelmed her. Letters arrived from merchant Navy veterans thanking her for helping protect their convoys. Families of sailors lost at sea wrote expressing gratitude that her work had saved others. The recognition felt both gratifying and humbling. Bletchley Park began the process of becoming a museum in the early 1990s. Joyce contributed to the planning efforts, advising on how to present the code-breaking operations accurately while making them accessible to general audiences. She helped design exhibits explaining Enigma encryption and the mathematical methods used to break it. The museum opened to visitors in 1994, preserving the legacy of the thousands who had worked there during the war. Joyce attended the opening ceremony, standing once again in Hut 8, where she had spent so many hours hunched over coded intercepts. The building had been restored to reflect its wartime appearance, with period desks and equipment recreating the working environment. She touched the wooden desk where she had sat, remembering the cold winter mornings and the satisfaction of watching patterns emerge from encrypted chaos. The ceremony concluded with speeches honoring Bletchley Park's codebreakers. Military officials and government representatives acknowledged that the intelligence produced there had shortened the war and saved countless lives. Specific operations were mentioned, including the protection of Atlantic convoys that had kept Britain supplied during its darkest hours. Joyce listened quietly, finally hearing public recognition of work she had done in absolute secrecy. She lived to see Bletchley Park become a celebrated historical site, attracting visitors from around the world. The museum educated new generations about the crucial role of intelligence operations in modern warfare. Students learned about Enigma codes and the brilliant minds that broke them. The story of the codebreakers inspired interest in mathematics and computing, demonstrating how theoretical knowledge could be applied to solve real-world problems. Joyce Harding passed away in 1998 at the age of 78. Her obituaries finally told the full story of her wartime service, describing how a young Cambridge mathematician had helped break German naval codes and protect Allied convoys. Historians praised her contributions to both the war effort and the development of computer science principles. Former colleagues remembered her mathematical brilliance and her dedication to the difficult work of code-breaking under constant pressure. The convoy she saved in February 1943, SC-118, became a footnote in her legacy. 45 merchant ships had reached Liverpool safely because Joyce Harding recognized a pattern in encrypted German communications. Those ships carried supplies that sustained Britain through the darkest period of the war. The sailors aboard them went home to their families, unaware that a woman they would never meet had given them that chance through mathematical genius and determined effort. Her work represented something larger than individual accomplishment. Joyce Harding was one of thousands who served at Bletchley Park, each contributing specialized skills to a collective effort that changed history. The codebreakers worked in secrecy, without recognition or reward, driven by duty and the knowledge that their work mattered. They proved that intellectual capability could be as decisive as military force, that patterns and logic could defeat encryption and save lives. The legacy extended beyond the war itself. The mathematical and mechanical methods developed at Bletchley Park laid groundwork for modern computing. The organizational structures created to manage code-breaking operations influenced post-war intelligence services. The recognition that women possessed technical abilities equal to men helped advance opportunities in fields previously closed to them. Joyce Harding and her colleagues transformed not just a war, but the world that followed. Bletchley Park today stands as testament to their achievement. The museum preserves their story, ensuring new generations understand how codebreakers contributed to Allied victory. Visitors walk through the huts where intercepts were decoded, see the equipment used to break Enigma codes, and learn about the individuals who dedicated themselves to this secret war. The story inspires, educates, and reminds us that victory often depends on those whose contributions remain hidden until history reveals their crucial role. Joyce Harding's name appears on a memorial at Bletchley Park, listed among the thousands who served there. The simple inscription records her service dates and position, offering no hint of the mathematical breakthroughs she achieved or the lives she saved. But the memorial itself speaks to larger truth. These codebreakers, working in secrecy and silence, helped defeat tyranny through intelligence and determination. Their legacy endures in the freedom secured by their wartime service and the knowledge that even the most closely guarded secrets eventually yield to brilliant minds armed with mathematics and resolve. If you have enjoyed this story, tell YouTube to send you similar stories by subscribing to this channel, liking the video, and leaving a comment.